Hello. Today I'd like to go over the real meat and potatoes of the reference solution. I built this thing to really demonstrate concepts. The actual scenarios that I came up with were really very simple. I really wanted to be able to show how to create custom XXA components and how to structure templates. So I really didn't come up with anything that has any real value or business value, but it's really just to show you the kinds of things you can do or the kinds of ways you should think about structuring templates and things like that. So really what I ended up doing was creating really two content types. And those content types are defined in the foundation layer. In a real project, I would only really break a feature and a foundational a module into a feature and foundational module like this if there were going to be more than one feature modules. But for the purposes of a reference architecture, I really wanted to show having those base content types defined in the foundation, having a repository in the foundation, and then building a UI component in a feature module and show you how that would work. Because on real projects, especially if you have a domain where there are certain things that are used by different components, this is how you would do it. So essentially the two content types I created were the concept of a sample category and a sample content item. Just to have a mechanism to classify your sample content items by category. And in the end, what I ended up doing is building two components, one to list the categories and one to list all of the content items that match a particular category. This lends itself well to the use of the repository pattern, to use Content Search API to give you all the items of a particular category to really demonstrate those concepts. So let me just give you an overview of those templates and show you how it's set up. So in Foundation, we can see there's a sample feature. And you can see we have content templates, and we have two templates. We have a sample content category, which is relatively straightforward. You can see it just consists of a category name. You always want to follow best practices, adding icons, and I chose an ice cream because the category is kind of like a flavor. And you always want to create standard values, and standard values, I've just used the name to populate with it. On the content side, we have sample content, which has a bunch of fields, title, rich text field, which I'm using the XXA rich text editor. That's a good practice to get in if you're defining your own templates. An image, which we could have set a query to the local site to media library. Probably should have done that. Maybe I'll do that afterwards. A call to action link, and then what category it is. And the idea here from a site perspective is that there'll be a folder for sample content, and there'll be a folder for sample content category. So site, data, sample content category, star, to make sure that this is a drop link that works. And that'll be specific to the site that you're in. At the feature level, since I have components, what you really want your feature templates to be around that the components that you actually have. So we can see under sample feature, we have component template of sample content list. Now this allows us to define an overall title for this component and which category we want to bind to. In this case, this actually uses the same data source, this query site data sample content category, so I can select which category I want. And that just binds that to the local item. Now, if we look on a particular site, we can see under the data folder, we have our three folders, sample content categories, and sample content lists. And we can look at some example content that I populated. So you can see category, I create blog and news. They're just simple items. And then for sample content, I have article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I didn't really fully populate these. And when we see it in action, you'll see why. And then our sample content list, I created one item, which just has a title and a category. To show you the actual components working, you can see there's actually two components on here. We have our sample categories. And this is a variant-based component. I'll explain how that works a little bit later. And then I have my sample content list, which has our title field, as well as our list of articles. And the content for the article list is also variant-driven. which is something to seriously consider if you're building a custom XSA component, is to leverage that ability to define the markup invariants. So really, I mean, this is just an example. I mean, in reality, your features can be dealing with a single template. They're very simple. You can have this parent-child relationship. It's a common pattern. So just want to show you that level of structuring. Just for completeness, you can also see I did create folder templates for each of these things, and that's what these folder templates are. And they just set the proper insert options. And I'll tell you how we wire this together to the XXA feature for bootstrapping into new sites in a later video. So really just wanted to give you kind of an overview of these content types, the sample content category, and the component template, and kind of how they all fit together. Thanks.